It's the Sports Peninsula podcast. Coming up, we continue our coverage of the 2023 NFL Draft prospect classes as we look at the safeties. This year's class has depth and day one potential. The Detroit Lions added CJ Gardner-Johnson and will return Tracy Walker along with CJ Moore to join second-year standout Kerby Joseph in the defensive backfield. Will they look to replace Deshon Elliott? We'll talk about it next. Now here's your Sports Peninsula team. Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Peninsula podcast. My name is Dave Drzezinski. Drew, it is Tuesday, April 4th, and we're talking about the safeties today. This is an exciting show coming up, and we got another exciting guest to introduce today, and we also have a couple more prospect classes we're going to cover before the draft starts. But let's get to it right now. First, let's introduce Coach Andy Shield, the Marine City Mariners. Coach, how you feeling?
Drew, doing well here. It's volatile weather here in early April. Spring is, marching in like a lion, as they said, and beware of some heavy-duty thunderstorms and some twisters potentially. We might have some cyclones in the area tomorrow, so you got to have your head on a swivel, be ready for the basement. But talking some safety right here.
Yeah, not that kind of safety, different kind of safety, right?
Yeah.
I hear you. And let's bring back Justin Mariquin, Detroit's finest. Welcome back, Justin. Good to have you. How you doing?
I'm doing well. It's great to be back talking football again with you guys. And we keep rolling along with our NFL draft analysis, and we're inching closer and closer to the 2023 NFL draft. And we're going to blink, and before you know it, our very own city, Detroit, is hosting next year. So it's very exciting.
Ooh, that is going to be huge. That is going to be really cool. We've been talking about, everyone's been talking about that forever, right? And finally getting it's going to be really great. And might have some good stuff to celebrate next year too. You just never know. You just never know. But we'll jump into the safety conversation. Before we get into it, though, I mean, guys, from just been looking at the Lions' perspective of this was a position group. In terms of just the safeties last year that looked pretty good going into the season. And then all of a sudden we lose Tracy Walker for the whole year, the number one guy. And thankfully, Brad Holmes signed Deshon Elliott. He stepped in admirably. And then young Kerby Joseph found his way. And, what better way to cut your teeth than to pick Aaron Rodgers off a couple or three times during the season? That's always a good thing. But Elliott's not there anymore. Joseph's there. They got Joseph now under at least a multi-year deal, and Walker's back. He's got a couple more years left on his deal. So this is a position group that they can address, but I wouldn't call it one that has an immediate need, but they certainly could address the depth there. They bring back CJ Mosley, of course. CJ Gardner-Johnson's there. Now he can play safety. He's also a slot corner. That's huge. And then Will Harris can do the same thing. So as I'm talking, it sounds like maybe it's less and less of a priority for the Lions, but hey, you never know, because there's some exciting guys here to talk about. And, let's just jump right into it right now. Let's go to our presentation. We're going to talk about the first prospect on the board, Coach, and that is going to be Brian Branch of Alabama.
Brian Branch, Alabama, vaunted defense. They gave up some points a few times this past year, but Brian Branch is a really intriguing prospect because he's very much a hybrid. He's not your true high safety or just box safety. He is very, very versatile as far as his ability to align in different spots, like where you would place safeties. In a two high safety system, he could play either the strong or the free safety very easily. He can, he can be the inside corner, or what would almost be like a pass outside, like a cover linebacker. He can play linebacker. He can play up into the box. He can play up high. He is very versatile that way. And he's got the kind of body type that kind of provides for it. If they're gonna make him become a box option, you'd see him a little bit bigger, and they're gonna make him a little bit bigger, and that's probably something that's going to happen. But a real instinctive, intuitive football player is a player that's kind of a natural at things. And he really found a good niche in the Nick Saban designed of defense. Where there's position versatility. You're going to have more guys in the in the shell or in coverage, at least to start the snap, to be able to defend these spread offenses, right? You've got to have, that extra defender in the shell covering. And he was really found a great niche in that inside corner, outside linebacker, sort of stack strong safety kind of player. And that's really where he became a really super effective defender for the Crimson Tide this past year. Real good closer. That's which alludes to him being able to play up high too, like a free safety, and be able to, get into the mix as a run defender that way, or finish up on tacklers too. He's a very efficient tackler, which he's a good finisher as a result of that. He ranges really well, high or up in the box. He can get to the football. Brian Branch can really get to the football. He's also a very noted zone defender as well. So it's not just in his man coverage skills or in his ability to be able to read, run, or pass in man and play it effectively. He also plays very well out of the zone, which is going to mean Brian Branch means business when it comes to defending the run as a defensive back. Very, very, very intriguing prospect. One that, honestly, I don't know what we couldn't or could draft at anymore at this point. Is Brian Branch in the consideration? He should be, because now the thing is, CJ Gardner-Johnson is pretty much Brian Branch. So, they're very, very similar players. So I think that's probably means Brian Branch is not a Detroit Lion at pick number 6, or probably likely 18 even. But if somehow he was chosen in one of these areas, we got a heck of a football player.
I would agree 100%, Coach. Let's take a look at Brian Branch real quick here. Love this against Ole Miss here. He can rush the quarterback, and he can sniff out a lot of different.
He came up and played that thing. He is not even setting an edge there. He read that from the rip, and that was probably his responsibility. We do that at Marine City, where you get a certain read off of a block. You're mano-a-mano on something and coming after it. And you saw him right there, and he closed to the near hip. That's not that easy. It's easy to get shook and miss that tackle too. So yeah, that was that showed that good closing and finishing that we were talking about.
He's tough. He's tough. Justin, there are a few concerns here about Brian Branch. Let's talk about those. What do you see?
Yeah, overall, he can improve in some areas, but I don't necessarily see him as a weakness at the safety position. He just needs to get a little bit better in some small areas, and I believe he'll do that at the next level when he takes that leap. But as you see here, he can struggle manning it active and explosive slot wide receiver. That's where he's going to have to get better at, especially at the next level. The route tree, very complex, a lot of RPO, a lot of just on the fly, a lot of hot routing going on in the NFL. So he's going to have to get better with the route tree as a defender, and he's going to have to get tighter route squeeze on these receivers in the NFL, especially like our own Amon-Ra St. Brown, which he's so good at in the flat and whatnot. Also, he can have trouble with separation. And I think it's just, I don't know. It's like, I know he's a confident football player, but it just feels like sometimes he's just like, whatever. Like his athletic ability can overcome that, but he'll have to get better at that too at the next level. And then, of course, we're seeing a lot of college football, especially in recent years at the safety position, is that some players like to overcommit, and he's one of those. And as we'll talk about these other prospects, it's just a very fast position now. They're filling the gaps. They're blowing up plays. They're making sacks, or they're just blowing up running plays or running lanes, if you will. But he's going to have to get better in that aspect as well as the other areas. But overall, just a fine prospect. I would compare him to Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yep, I like that too. Yeah, definitely. No, great job, guys. I like Brian Branch a lot. Not at 6, but at 18. Oh, yeah, absolutely. He could be in play. But Coach, I think you're right. With Gardner-Johnson now in the mix, even though it's a 1-year deal, it probably deters them from going with a Brian Branch at 18, because there may be some other needs, and there's other players at those positions that'll be available in equal value. All things being, apples to apples, they're probably going to go with another direction. But Brian Branch is definitely a day one guy. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I think we all agree on that. But let's talk about the next prospect. No, what do you know? Alabama, Jordan Battle, the senior, playing with Brian Branch. Justin, let's start off. What do you like about this guy?
What I like is that he has experience. As you can see on the screen there, he's played in more than 50 games at the University of Alabama in the SEC conference. That's going to bode well for him when he makes the leap to the next level, because that experience, he's seen a lot of looks, he's seen a lot of players, he's seen a lot of different sizes, and he can handle all that stuff. And, playing 50 games, you're naturally going to be a leader, and that's what he was on this defense. He can do it all. I like his size. I like bigger safeties. He's listed at 6'1", 206. At the combine, he ran the 40-yard dash in a 4.5, and he had 17 reps on the bench press. So he can handle that. Tackling, all that stuff, and very instinctive player. And you should, if you log 50 games in the SEC conference, you should be a very instinctive player. And if he wasn't, there would be an area of concern. But not there. Just overall, good looking prospect. I think he can just plug in and play, honestly. Day one, you just have to coach him up a little bit. But overall, I think he could start day one, like a la Kerby Joseph of our Detroit Lions, and he can get the job done.
Yeah, Jordan Battle's a tough player. He's a good player. Let's take a look at him real quick, guys. Here we are, and I believe it's against Georgia. Interception against our buddy Stetson Bennett going to the house, and he can do those kind of things, and that's what's awesome.
You see it in motion right here. You see him, he jumped that right there. He fell that alley. He saw those eyes. He saw Stinson's eyes, and he just was like a pit bull on a pork chop. He jumped that thing and was a house call. Impressive, and that's that intuitive play that Justin was talking about right there. They had two of them. I believe Alabama's got 3, potentially 4 draftable safeties in this draft. And these two guys are number 1 and number 2 on most boards. It's really impressive.
Yeah, definitely, Coach. And now, we talked about, earlier, Branch being guilty of over pursuing a bit. And we could see it paid off there for Battle. But, Coach, there's some concerns here, too, as well. Let's talk about Jordan Battle's concerns.
Well, it's typically he's guilty of crowding the line of scrimmage too much, and you're going to want to do that because you want to be a factor and be able to show blitz, right? Show and not go, or show and go, and come from an alley or a gap or an edge, whatever, and blitz and be a factor where they've got to account for you. That way, they're not quite sure what you're going to do. Well, plays get run. And, sometimes if he's too tight, he doesn't have an angle on a play. So then he's just using his brute speed. And yes, he will overcommit to crossing the face of a defender or trying to force it back inside and really not be a factor, and kind of be a broken tackle or whiff. And we've seen that a little bit on Jordan Battle. And that's one of the reasons probably why he may not be considered number 1 is his rate of missed tackles is pretty high. He misses more tackles than most of the guys that we were talking about tonight. So that's something that's going to have to be cleaned up. And you show that too much, and you're just you're gonna be running down on a lot of kickoffs. You're gonna be on the punt team. You're gonna be on that punt return team, and they're gonna keep you off the field because if you can't tackle, you're not going to be out there. And that's something that Jordan Battle is going to want to make sure he shores up. And like I said, he can get leveraged. He really, if anything, his biggest issue is that he plays almost press style or press alignment so much, or he's showing in blitz. He's trying to disguise his responsibility so much with a tight alignment to the line of scrimmage. He gets caught up with it too much. It's something that he either, for whatever reason, it's something that showed up a lot on film, and he's missed a lot of tackles because of it, and he's been blocked and hemmed in on things where he shouldn't be and getting leveraged because of it. And those are some things that he's got to work on and improve.
Yeah, no question. I mean, they'll make you pay in the NFL doing that. They make you pay in the SEC too. Coach, do you think some of that scheme, or is that just really the type of player he is, and whoever gets him is going to have to really kind of work on that with him?
Well, I mean, and not being on the Alabama stuff, I know I've watched Alabama football just like you have, just like Justin has, and so many people have. And Nick Saban teams are defensive football teams. They're usually a juggernaut defensively. When we had Les Miles at LSU, that LSU Alabama game was oftentimes to decide who's going to really probably be the national champion that year. And those games were like 13-7. And the rest of the year it was 41-20. It was all. And those are the hallmarks of Saban-led teams. They gave up a lot of points this year. And I just think an aggressive style, maybe being just a little too, outfoxing yourself a little bit at times. And instead of playing sound and just kind of doing your job, play within your rules, play within yourself, and have faith in the guys next to you and behind you, and just do what you should do fundamentally and soundly. He would kind of rush it and try to take it that extra notch to force or something, and oftentimes it left him out to dry. That's a little bit of that thinking right there too, or it's an awareness that somehow has not clicked in with Jordan Battle yet. And if it hasn't, playing for Nick Saban, there's a good chance it might not happen. And this could be something that he's, a little guilty of. But, I don't want to blame Jordan Battle for that. That's not fair. I mean, maybe he was coached to do that. But oftentimes it was really poor alignment that got him in trouble.
Well, I'm sure the scouts going to do their job, and he's a very talented player, like you both have talked about. And at the end of the day, I think he probably goes day 2, early day 2, though maybe late day 1. I mean, it depends. I mean, if someone needs a safety and he's on the board, I mean, he's a possibility there. But I see him going early day 2, probably before the Lions would pick in round 2, is what I'm thinking. So if they're not going to go Branch round 1, you're looking at another possibility. But I'll tell you what, guys, Antonio Johnson, the redshirt junior out of A&M, is one that I am intrigued with personally. Coach, let's talk about what you like about him.
His size and length. I mean, he's got, ex-receiver size, 6'3", 195-pounder. And he is one of the signature and more recognizable defensive backs in the Southeastern Conference the last couple of years. And, we all know, what that conference really means, to college football and really, American football in of itself. I mean, that is a distinguished signature conference that produces high caliber football. And this is one of the better players in his position group in that entire league. Another instinctive and physical player, very much like Battle, very much like Branch, a physical, confident, instinctive player. Real comfortable lining up in an array of alignments. The concern you have with that is just what we were talking about earlier, with Jordan Battle, is that sometimes their alignment can be sloppy because they align so much, so differently, so often that the details and refinement of good landmarks in your alignment, sometimes go missing, and that can cost you. But he's very comfortable lining up all over the field, which is music to the ears of almost every defensive coordinator that he would be playing for. Excellent tackler. Really embraces that physical aspect of the game. Might be the best tackler of the 3 players we've talked about thus far. Brian Branch is right there, obviously, with him. But Antonio Johnson can make tackles. Watched a ton of different, clips here, with him. By including the one that you're going to play for us here in a few minutes, Drew, he makes tackles. Possesses, he's real comfortable and patient and triggering in his zone coverage, which, sometimes you can be a little too patient, but he doesn't overcommit as much as some of these other guys. He'll feel things out and will monitor that big picture and jump when he needs to, not just, as how high as the defense or offense tells him. And he's good at manning big slots, as you would expect at 6'3", 195. Really like Antonio Johnson. Of the three that we've talked about, this is more of your true high or up safety, although he has the alignment for scheme position versatile safety as well. He could be a guy that would be a long-termer, certainly.
Yeah, let's take a look at him, Coach. Right here against Florida.
The Florida Gators here. And,
actually, I think that's the wrong clip. I apologize.
Yeah, that's the guy a little further down the list. And here we go. Nope.
Think I screwed this one up, boys. So that's okay. Sorry about that. We don't have our clip of Antonio Johnson. I apologize. I doubled up on our next prospect. I apologize for that, but
physical tackler, and a guy that really closes and is secure, and is a tackler above and beyond all else, which would really add to him being an outstanding special teams guy on kickoff and punt teams as well, at least early on in his career. I think there's a lot to like with Antonio Johnson.
Yeah, definitely. And then, but of course, with every player, there's some drawbacks, right, Justin? Let's talk about what some concerns are that you have with Antonio Johnson.
Yeah, as great as a prospect that he is, my concern is that he's more of a downhill safety. And what I mean by that is he's really good close to the line of scrimmage, but as you get further and further away, his play diminishes. As far as tackling and ball skills, it's not really there. The deeper the play progresses, like say 10, 15, 20 yards downfield, I have some concerns there. Also, he allows too much cushion from off-man looks at the next level. He's going to have to clean that up. You're going to get killed at the next level, as we see with a lot of these plays developing in the flat and RPO action and whatnot. He's going to have to get better at that. He's going to have to get just a little bit more instinctive and getting a little bit more aggressive, not too aggressive, but he's going to have to get more aggressive than just kind of just sitting back and then seeing what happens. Also, sometimes he will come in a little hot and he will go past the target point. So at the next level, again, he's going to have to get better at that. And that'll just come with experience and, his coaches in practice and whatnot, and learning just the different level of speed and the angles that he's going to have to take at the next level. But if he can clean that stuff up, I believe, he can just be a do-it-all type of safety. Not in the playmaking ability, but just his appearance alone just kind of reminds me of an Antonio Cromartie type. But not nearly as good as Antonio Cromartie, but he can be a problem at the next level if he just learns what I just mentioned there and cleans that stuff up a bit.
Honestly, guys, because of his size and what I've seen on film, it wouldn't surprise me if he went ahead of battle. It could happen because of his size and because of the way he plays the game. Not a knock on Battle. It's just being 6'3", 200 pounds. That's gonna that helps a lot. But definitely, I like Antonio Johnson. Tell you what, when the Lions are up in the second round, I think if this guy's on the board, he's going to get a serious look. I won't say that's who they'll take, but he will get consideration because he is really that good. Very good prospect. Let's talk about our next prospect now, Christopher Smith II, the senior out of Georgia. Man, and this guy's he's a talented player. We'll go figure. We got Alabama, Georgia, and then we got one A&M player. But Georgia's a machine, and Christopher Smith's part of that. He's a very good player. Let's talk about Christopher Smith's attributes, Justin, if you will.
Well, let me start off first by saying, is he a twin of Nakobe Dean, former linebacker, Georgia Bulldogs? Because that's exactly what this guy is in a safety form, and he can play all over. Free safety, strong safety, inside, outside, whatever you ask of this guy. And then his IQ goes along with Nakobe Dean when he was at the linebacker position at Georgia. This guy just processes information, can see the field, can see plays developing actually before they even happen. And then just his striking ability and the way that he attacks the ball, I love it. And I just think it's that Georgia mentality, especially on that defense. But he is the definition of, finishing a play And he loves to just play, all over, zone and man coverage, which that'll do well for him at the next level. He won't be one dimensional. He can, be in on, first down as much as he can be in on third down. He won't have to, switch in and out. And also at the University of Georgia, as we know, we saw, with that great defensive performance in the national championship game, the tackling is insane. And, what do they do at the University of Georgia? They create turnovers all over the field, and especially him, Christopher Smith. I really like him. I actually have him next to Branch. I would say he's number 2. I know he might be a little undersized at safety, but just from what I've seen and the playmaking ability and the way that he can process information, that's very good. And that's a good sign if you're a team looking to select a player like him and his caliber. I think he'll do well.
Yeah, let's take a look at Christopher Smith real quick here against Oregon. There we go. Finally got the right clip here, guys. Sorry about that. But you see he jumps that route. Watch this. Reading the quarterback's eyes. You got to like that.
Kirby Smart's defenses, Coach Saban's definitely got a challenger with Kirby Smart at Georgia. And I really wonder what he's going to do. I mean, that's a whole other conversation, different show concept. Is Kirby Smart going to head back there one day? Because, I mean, right there you saw the really the Jordan battle pick that you saw against Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
You just saw the exact same play with Georgia versus Oregon. And, with Smith jumping the same exact almost route style, exact same kind of depth. Both of those, are, Smart and Saban based, conceptually, and Smart was at Alabama forever. So you really see a guy that can do a lot of the same things. And I like what Justin said. I think, this is a guy that's a weight room session away and professional world-class training. Not that he hasn't had that in his 4 years in Athens, Georgia, but now he's a paid professional and can actually even, enhance it more. He's going to be 200, 201, 202 pounds within the next 12 months. So, I mean, he's going to have a little more of that, a little more physical size and strength to match, because he's such a good player on the ball, like we saw against the Oregon Ducks.
Yeah, definitely, Coach. What are your concerns about Christopher Smith, Coach?
Well, as a high IQ player, these guys, these are the communicators. They're the quarterbacks of the defense, if you will. And they are processing so much, taking in the whole big picture and compartmentalizing it, looking at clusters of receivers, looking at alignment of receivers, looking if there's any kind of giveaway as some sort of slide protection by the line. Looking at what the quarterback's looking off and checking off and doing those kinds of things. Once that happens, and all of the work that you've done pre-snap, when the ball actually gets snapped, sometimes you can gaze a little bit and take a second to process. He's not lazy or dead on the trigger or soft. It's that he's done so much pre-snap that it's going to take him a second to gather his thoughts. And, when that, on a hot route, Justin was mentioning hot route, mentality, you can't have a late that's where you get beat. And that's something that he's going to have to clean up. Real physical kid, but not always the most sound tackler. He comes in hot and sometimes doesn't, what we call fire the guns. And that's taking, those, basically having, elbows against, obliques and ripping through and hugging on to the target as you strike it with, eyes up and heads up. He doesn't bring the arm sometimes, and things will bounce off of him. Oftentimes he comes in with those lazy shoulder hits. We're seeing a lot of guys deuce up their shoulders that way. They're saving on concussions a little bit, but they're also missing on a lot of those tackles. Looks real sharp when you make them, but Christopher Smith's missed a few of those. He is 5'11", 190 at this point in time, and he could get boxed out. He could get boxed out by a good tight end on a curl route, just sit and sink right in front of him, and he's not going to be able to make the play. He's just going to box him out. or bigger receivers can kind of beef him a little bit at the route stem and create separation by, pinning him off and those kinds of things. But a lot to like about Christopher Smith. I can totally see what Justin's saying about him being right up there with Brian Branch, because they're very, very similar.
Yeah, they are similar. I love his versatility too, Justin. I think I love the Nakobe Dean comparison. I thought you were taking a dig at Dean for his size, but I love him too. And Smith is a nice player. As a Lions fan, wouldn't mind one bit if he became a Detroit Lion on day 2. And I see him likely going on day 2. The only way a guy like Smith or even a guy like Ball, any of these guys slip beyond that is because there's just other positional needs for teams, and that may be the situation at hand. But realistically, let's talk now about the next guys, Jamie Robinson out of Florida State. And Justin, let's talk about what you like about Robinson.
Well, first of all, he transferred from South Carolina and then moved on to Florida State, where he balled out, so to say. What I like about him is that he's very explosive. When I watch tape on him, very good, just filling gaps, blowing up plays. And what I think what it's going to go well for him at the next level is that he's a very good blitzer. We're seeing that more and more now in the NFL, blitzing schemes, if you will. And I think he fits in well with that. Third down, say, a 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, and you want to send him, he can go get it, go get the quarterback, or, he can trip up a play, the running back or whatnot. That's what I like about him. And his athleticism is really, really good. And, he processes information well, I thought. Not as well as Christopher Smith, our last prospect. But I really think, he's just a stand-up guy, and, he's a tough player too. He does not shy away from contact. I've seen countless tape on him, going side to side, east and west, and, knocking the running back out of bounds, blowing up gaps and whatnot. I really like his style of play. I think it translates to the next level of just his overall playmaking ability. And I know, around the league, there's been, murmurs saying, oh, he can't really play safety, or you can't really put him in the nickel. No, you find a spot to put this guy, Jamie Robinson, because he can ball out. So like our last prospect, he's 5'11", 199 pounds. I don't really see that being an issue, like I said, with his physicality that I saw and just his blitzing ability. I think is really well for him, and that's kind of like one of his good attributes at the next level, wherever he ends up.
Yeah, he's a nice player. Let's take a look at him. We'll finally get to see him for real here. Here he is stepping up, making a play against Florida. And look at this.
Right on top of a little short route, these little shallow routes. These are the things that you're seeing. Quarterbacks that are 42 of 46 for games. They live off of routes like that. And what kills you with those, if it's not that big of a deal if it's 2-3 yards, here and there that they get that. With a sound play like Jamie Robinson's, when they catch those and then pick up 10, 12 extra yards is where you can really get burned on plays like that. Jamie Robinson was right there to take care of that and clean that up. And, that really is a testament to what Justin had alluded to just a little bit earlier, is his physicality is very keen.
Makes you think twice about going up the middle when you got a guy like that there. And that's his game. That's what we like about him. But coach, there's a few concerns. Let's talk about those.
Well, and as that play was kind of attributed to it, that play was made inside the box, nice and tight in front of him. Real secure, sound tackler. But he's not a guy that makes a ton of plays on the ball. He's not a guy that's going to get a lot of PBUs, has not generated a lot of volume in regards to picks and those kinds of things. More of a play on the player than he is on the ball, better box run defender than he really is playing high and having to make plays downfield in the pass game. And honestly, he can kind of be a ghost out there, and that's the kiss of death when, you're getting recruited from high school to play in college. If you are that off defender so often, you just don't make a ton of plays. are not able to factor in on a lot of them. You can and get to be kind of a ghost defender out there. Just not real highlightable there, and it doesn't really kind of draw much separation from anybody else. And that also can be something where you get taken advantage of from time to time. So he needs to make sure that he's aware and urgent out there on every play, even if he is the off defender. He's instinctive, but he's a better zone player than he is a cover man-to-man guy. Some of that's size related, and some of it might just be a little bit of his ability to, be more of that off zone defender than a guy that's up in your face and playing off of a route stem and, playing in phase all the time. More of a zone guy.
I like him, and I agree with you guys in your synopsis. I think it's great. I think he's a very good player, and I don't want to call him limited, but coach, to your point, in the box, that's where he excels. So you put him in the right situation, Robinson could start for a team right away. If he's not quite in the right situation, he's going to be in heavy rotation, certainly be contributing on special teams right off the hop, and likely starts in year 2 or 3. That's how I see him. So I see him as a likely day 2, but probably 3rd round pick. But I really like him. Love the physicality. He's a sturdy player. I mean, he's a strong guy. He's a strong kid. So he's going to play well in the NFL, I think. Probably not, like, to your point, coach, if you do have that tendency to be a ghost out there a little bit, yeah, that can be bad, especially when you're trying to impress. On the flip side, if I don't hear your name much, that's not necessarily a bad thing in the NFL, because maybe you're not getting thrown to because maybe teams are wary. You got to prove yourself to be in that conversation. And I'm sure given the opportunity, Mr. Robinson could possibly do that. But let's talk about our next guy. And
you're absolutely right, though, Drew. You're absolutely right. I mean, if you're the king of the chuck off, that doesn't necessarily mean you're a ghost.
Yeah, exactly. It's so, but he's a nice player, no question. But here's another nice player, coach, and this is Sidney Brown, the senior out of Illinois. I think he played with a guy named Kerby Joseph last year, if I'm not mistaken, who's now a Detroit Lion. But let's talk about Sidney Brown. What do you like about him, coach?
Yeah, he played with Kerby Joseph, and he's yet another one of a couple of other Illinois defenders at the safety position that are going to be that are likely to be drafted in this draft. And Devin Witherspoon, another defensive back that's likely to go very, very high. Sidney Brown's another one of these outstanding Illini defensive backs. He's originally from London, Ontario, and finished up his high school down in Florida, 3-star prospect out of high school. So he's, pretty, really from our kind of the neck of the woods, really. He's only, about an hour and a half from here. So twin brother of former Western Michigan and, Illinois running back legend, Chase Brown, who's outstanding this year for the Illini. Dad played in the CFL, real twitchy athlete, and has really shown that great closing ability on tackling. Another great tackling Illinois defensive back. He's covered low as a linebacker and in that area where you saw Jamie, Robinson make his play. And he's also covered high as a free safety. He's man tight ends as an inside, slot corner or nickel corner. Real functional athlete, real functional and smooth that way. And it allows him to be pretty versatile out there. This is a real bread and butter type defensive back, not dissimilar to what Kerby Joseph was coming out of the draft last year. Not at all. Very, very similar. Very, very similar. Sidney Brown is an intriguing prospect.
Yes, he is. Let's take a look at him, coach. And right here against Iowa.
Against the Hawkeyes here, we see a real good kind of just hemmed in from the get-go, the Illini defense there. Was able to take care of that. And he got downhill in a hurry. And
Yeah,
that's what you
we
saw
could
there.
see it. Yep, I apologize. We got a little glitchy there. The pitfalls of live recording, right, fellas? That's how it works. So it is what it is. Screw it. But I tell you what,
Bill O'Reilly had no problem with it.
that's true. That's true.
He liked it, in fact.
Yeah,
So
apparently
that
too
one
much.
clip that we see.
But Sidney Brown is rocked up. I mean, this dude. I mean, watching him work out at the combine and watching a lot of his clips. I mean, I was like, wow, he's 6'2", 200, but man, I mean, he looks bigger than he actually weighs. To be honest with you, he's a strong kid. Justin, what are your concerns about Sidney Brown though coming in the NFL?
My biggest concern with him is going to be his tackling ability. He has got to get that short up if he's going to, play at the next level. Fine prospect overall, but you have got to tackle in the NFL. Over the years, we've seen a lot of, arm tackling, a lot of slip, tackling and whatnot, throwing shoulders and whatnot. You're going to have to wrap up and you're going to have to bring guys down in this league, especially running backs, these tight ends now, these bigger tight ends. You're going to have to win that battle. You're not going to get away by shoulder bumping them or just, lightly trying to grab at their arms and legs. So he's got to shore that up. Like you just said, big guy, got some weight on him, and that bodes well for other areas, but his hips are a little tightly bound. So he's going to have to, get better in that area too, a little more quickness and get more loose in those hips. So he can go, east and west and north and south all over the place at the next level, which you're going to have to do it and face virtually at every single down in the NFL. Also, he can get beat from the progress point on tackles. Simply put, he's got to get better at that. So I think as much as his physical attributes and the way that he is as a player, those can actually work against him. And that's what's intriguing about this prospect is that he had, his ceiling is very high, but you're looking at that point that, he needs to get better with the tackling. I mean, that just, it's not going to fly at the next level, and I'll have to figure that out. Like Coach said earlier, if you're not good at tackling, you're going to be thrown on special teams, and that's where he's probably going to have to earn his keep if he's not a good tackler. They throw you on, kickoff, throw you on punt. But other than that, if he builds upon those traits right there and attributes, then, look out. You're seeing another, star player like Kerby Joseph, that he played with.
Yeah, it's Sidney Brown, and you're right. It's kind of it's a little lower floor, but a high ceiling. So he's tougher to gauge in my mind of where he might go. I mean, to say he could go on day 2, well, that's easy. He could slip to day 3 because of some of these concerns too. But I can't see him guys slipping past the 4th round. I mean, there's just too much talent here. That would shock me pretty much. But we talk about 4th round picks. Amon-Ra St. Brown was a 4th round pick, and that was a surprise. These things happen. So it wouldn't surprise me if Sidney Brown was one of those guys that because of just other positional needs in other teams, he just keeps getting pushed back, but he could be gold on day 3 if that's the case. But I'd be surprised if he showed up there, to be honest. But let's talk about some other prospects here, Coach. We got a list of them here. Some other guys we think are going to definitely be drafted or have a very good chance of being drafted. Who are a couple that you like?
Well, a couple, we've seen Brandon Joseph, on potential draft boards now for 3 years. He's actually a transfer out of Northwestern. And he finished his career in South. He went east a little ways and finished in South Bend with Notre Dame. Real good looking fluid safety. That's very, very similar prospect to all these 6 prospects that we just talked about. Jalen Skinner out of Boise is kind of intriguing, guys. And look at that size. He's got that frame once again, 6'4", 218. And, 2 others I'm just going to, quick make mention of, another Illinois safety, Jartavius Martin, very, very similar. He's the partner to Sid Brown. Excellent player. Man, do they coach some defensive backs at Illinois. He coached on the staff. Really intriguing. And then the 3rd Alabama safety on the board, DeMarco Helms, who's a bigger kid, more kind of your box type, kit guy, 6'1", 208, can play that kind of cover backer, role as well. Another physical kid and a guy that's been developed and groomed by Coach Saban's staff for 4 years. So, he's a doggone good football player.
Yeah, he's going to help somebody immediately, at least definitely on special teams, and probably start eventually within the next year or two. Justin, who do you like?
I'm rooting for Rashad Torrance out of Florida. I know at the combine he didn't necessarily perform like he wanted to. He ran the 40 in a 4.7. But if you look on the tape, I think he ran, a little bit faster than that. Kind of like, I'm not comparing him, but like how Jerry Rice, ran a 4.6 back in the day. But I know he played a lot faster than that on the field. So same thing here. Good fluid movement. He just lacks that top end speed. But overall, I like him. He takes smart angles too. You watch the tape on him, he fills them pretty good. And what I like about him too, he's always searching, especially when the running back has the ball, defensive line's crashing down. He's searching for that running back looking to blow up the play. So I like him. I don't know if he will be drafted. He might go undrafted just because of those combine numbers. But he did lead the Florida Gators in tackles. He had 84 tackles last season. So, pretty good in the SEC. And then another guy I have my eye on is Christian Young from Arizona. Now, we talked about this already. Tackling is a little bit of an issue, but he's another Swiss Army knife. And kind of similar like Jamie Robinson, I think he will fit well at the next level in a package type of deal first to get his feet wet, get his confidence up, and then you can slowly integrate him into being that full-time safety. But I like his size, big guy, 6'3", 217 pounds, huge frame, a lot of muscle behind that. I like him a lot, and I actually think he will get drafted just based, on his physical attributes alone.
Now, great picks, guys. I like size a lot. I do like Skinner out of Boise State a lot. I like his teammate Tyreek Jones, who's 6'2", 205 himself. Definitely like Young out of Arizona, 6'3". Skinner reminds me kind of like a poor man's Kyle Hamilton a little bit from last year's draft. Similar size, probably not as versatile, but I like him a lot. I've seen him mock to the Lions quite a bit recently, which is interesting as a day 2 pick, and that could happen. So wouldn't surprise me at all. But great job, guys. This is an interesting class. I think it's deep because everyone we talked about guys that might not get drafted are good football players. But I don't think there is a Kyle Hamilton in this group this year that we're talking about in the top 10. No, but definitely some day 1 talent for sure. And we could be surprised. And we're talking about the top 4 guys that we talked about are kind of interchangeable. And we're talking about, Branch and Battle together or with Robinson or whatever the case is. And there's a lot of options there. Not quite as dynamic as the cornerback class, but pretty good, pretty solid. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what Brad Holmes wants to do. We'll see. We'll wait eagerly in anticipation as Lions fans waiting to see what happens. But this is a nice draft class. Great job, fellas. For Coach Andy Shield, the Marine City Mariners, for Detroit's finest, Justin Miracle, and I'm Drew. Take care, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to the channel. Like the channel. If you want any content, let us know. Got any feedback for us? Give it to us. We're ready to take it. We want to hear what you got to say. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching. Take care, everybody. This has been the Sports Peninsula Podcast. To subscribe to the podcast, simply click the subscribe button on our YouTube channel's homepage and give us a like. You can also follow our audio podcast on multiple platforms, including Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and Google Podcast, just to name a few. Give us a follow on Twitter. Our handle is @SportsPPodcast to check out our latest releases. Thank you again for watching and listening. Remember, when you want to hear about sports in the great state of Michigan, there is only one Sports Peninsula Podcast.